My name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. Today I want to continue my discussion of the moon phases, the journey of the soul according to William Butler Yeats. And I've come to moon phase 18. We're in the waning moon, following the full. This is the fourth full 24 hours after the full moon, and that is 35 degrees to 48 degrees after the full moon, or after 180 degrees. This is the sesquiquadrate. Sesquiquadrates are interesting. At 135 degrees, that's 3/8. This is the Leo sesquiquadrate, and here's the Scorpio sesquiquadrate, and they are the apex of willful activity. So, the emotional ego, moon phase 18, is the disillusioned one. There are, here in the wisdom rectangle, this is the wisdom of desire, the wisdom of the head, and the wisdom of the heart, and this is the wisdom of clarity, or the orb of dominion. So, this is an initiation phase, 18, as was its creative genius down here, was also an initiation phase. And this is one of those phases you can't skip over by working extra hard some other place. So at this initiation, this is a lifelong initiation, as it was for moon phase 12, of stripping away the old emotional criteria that had guided the entity since it was discovered here in moon phase 11 and 12. That is, it ends the dominion of the lunar mind over the solar mind. The old ideal of the perfect life, which guided 17 and 16, is no longer appropriate. It's incompatible, actually. The will here wants to participate in life. He wants to abandon the ideal to explore reality. So, but the moon is still focused on the old gratification, and this is a divided state, whereas the lunar mind is focused on the internal ideal and expectations, and the solar mind has turned out to see what it can do in the world. It's gaining power. The will is gaining in power. But this divided state is intensely full of conflict. The mind opposes the emotions. This tension, however, is very helpful, because it makes them vigilant, makes them aware. The beauty of clarity over here is their curse and a blessing for them. But they'll never find contentment. They'll never find emotional satisfaction, because their emotions are wanting something that the will isn't going to go after. So relationships, finances, home life, none of them need to meet up to their ideal. In relationships, they need a muse. The muse is inspiration, the contact, combat, interaction with somebody's on your own level is a climbing action for the mind, and all of these individuals participate in that. Even Einstein, who had a muse. We'll talk about that later. This is an initiation into power. Those old habits will pervert the right use of power, and that's what this is all about, the right use of power. All of these are in this rectangle of wisdom are seekers, and what 18 is doing is seeking the natural law of human interaction, as 12 sought natural law. And this is its 18's creative genius. He's needing a basic philosophy for action in the world. He's wanting to take a unique action. He's wanting to take a unique path through the world. And that territory that he's seeking here to conquer is going to be some pivot point of change in society. His disillusionment is absolutely necessary so that his mind can grow in objectivity. And this process of growing in objectivity is a lifelong process. But look at what can be gained. Look how big this rectangle is. And that's what the potential of a moon phase 18. If they get out there and go into action, follow their heart, follow their creative genius. And the creative genius is most important to the people up here, because this is motivation. There's no motivation in air. There's motivation in passion, in water. And so that's where they have to seek it. The mask over here at 4. Now remember, the mask over there at 4 had problems getting going because it hated conflict. Well, so does 18. Absolutely hates conflict. And so they'll sit and they'll, Yeats calls it vacillation. He said vacillation and indecision waste time. And they do, because it just shrinks what they could gain so much if they just get out there and do it. Conflict grows the mind. Without conflict, the mind just sits and stagnates, virtually. So anyway, if 18 is inert, the daemon will force them to choose a path, to choose a territory of conquest. We're up here, if you'll remember, the knight here, and the runaway knight who rescued his own white lily from the clutches of the king, and his own creative ability. And up here, the king is this is a conquest of territory. So here we have the king, and this is the king on horseback. He's conquering territory. Here we have the seated king who administers territory. So we need our king to get out there and find and perfect his own specialty. But his clarity on his journey out into the world pretty much depends on no emotional involvement. If he can keep his disappointment in life out of his mind, from swaying his mind, because he's a student of history and an excellent observer of the present, he can predict the future if he's not overwhelmed by his emotions. So in these two initiation phases, that's where the mode of action goes from gentle lunar to harsh solar. And it's a social mind here, and it's become rational and harsh in its opposition to the emotions. But the moon still hates conflict. It thinks of itself as loving action. It can take more than one lifetime for the aggressive solar nature to win out over the gentle and civilized lunar nature. Meanwhile, 18 has to simply endure. Out of phase, well, they'll be inert, like 4 was. They won't go. They'll stay home. They'll make lists about things that, interesting things, facts. They're fact collectors, like 4 was. And they'll avoid that search for their own power, their own truth. And they'll destroy. They have a very their destructive side. Yeats called it a fascination of sin. This was a problem with 4, and it's a problem with 18. These 18 either battles against the karmic burden of the world or adds to those karmic burdens. These people are not neutral. They're if they can't get out and get busy, their passion and do follow their heart, their passionate desire for action will deteriorate and turn into lust and greed, and we'll have on our hands an insecure tyrant. They're very effective liars. 17 was too, but 18 is a more dramatic liar. The only antidote for their disillusionment, for their cynicism, for their rage, is forgiveness. We have here Pisces. The Pisces decadent is encompassed by 18, and forgiveness is absolutely essential. They must forgive the world. They must forgive the world. But the moon hates conflict, desires safeness, sameness, stays home. The creative genius here, the passion of the creative genius, is all that will move them. Their mind is impersonal and yearns for human interaction. They want to test the mind against the pioneering thought of the time. These people are interested in group dynamics. They partake very well in groups because the interaction, the interplay, the conflict that happens in groups and is very stimulating to the mind and grows the mind and keeps the mind interested in its learning process, its specialization that is taking place here. 18 wants to pursue the life of the mind. The ability to use the imagination is his power. So in order to do this, in order to specialize, he's going to have to abandon certain parts that he considered vital parts back in here, especially back in here, vital to his life, and he will just abandon them. He'll first of all, he has to abandon the myth of outer perfection, which still is a curse. This myth, this image, that if I'm perfect and act perfectly, the world will respond perfectly. Right. He's going to have to abandon personal preferences. He's going to have to abandon idealized relationships. He's seeking the truth of reality. Now, wrong action. Yeats says wrong action is better than no action at all, because you learn. And you learn. And these people are fast learners. All they have to do is get out there and do it. All I have to do is do it. But this moon is very, very timid, very, very intimidated. These people, if they're involved in the world, they can bring something really valuable and new to the world. This is initiation phase into wisdom. This is the wisdom of the heart. This is a revelation of their own peculiar, unique destiny. This is an uncovering of their own powers. And power up here, the power of the mind is the only human power. The power of the mind. The goal in Moon Phase 18 is not to eliminate emotion, but to recognize useful emotion. That's an imaginative, loving response to the world. That's the only emotion they have. Anything else, or what passes for emotion with them, is habits of thought and habits of attitude. 18 needs to be guided by that feeling of rightness that's right there in his heart. That territory of conquest will be some pivot point of change. He can make a huge difference, So, Moon Phase 18. Here's the first card. Let me expose the Kabbalah here. Okay. And here we are at 4 and 18. Just a wonderful card. The Tower. And that's how much fun this card is. That's how much fun this these people have. This is a difficult card. It's energy. It's running between consciousness and desire. It moves back and forth. It's a double, like the Empress is. This is words of power, like because they can see so clearly, they're obliged to speak up. To speak up. That is what Moon Phase 4 has to do too, in spite of the fact he doesn't want to be seen as peculiar or not going along by his fellows. Anyway, this card is a card of walking the walk. If you want something, you have to do it. You have to do it. It's a card of specialization too, and that's 4 is trying to find what its expanse of its potentials, and 18 is trying to narrow those potentials into something particular, some specialization. So this is an expansion of power, and purging of the past. Here's the Emperor. Here's a card of the creative genius and the body of fate. Son of the morning. It's an Aries card. It's the whole. You notice in each. Sorry, I'm shaking so bad. Aries, Uranus is still not moved off my Saturn. It's just sitting there. It's an Aries card. Notice the ram, and remind you of the card Crowley said: use your powers, or others will use them. Okay, that's the Emperor. It's a search for meaning. It's a search for spiritual understanding. And so we've got some really cool Moon Phase 18s. Really cool Moon Phase 18. Robert Bly. One of my favorite teachers was Robert Bly. And I love the man. I loved his teaching more than I loved his poetry, but I appreciate his poetry, because if you read Robert Bly's poetry, you get insights into Moon Phase 18. Okay, we've got Eva Braun. Now, that'll happen with, let me put this guy back up so I can point. And not be, okay, over here at 26, these people, 26 brings the ability to just give up, to drop into anybody's hands. Somebody take care of me. Somebody take care of me. Somebody tell me what to do. And that can really affect Moon Phase 18. And it sort of affects the whole wisdom rectangle. It gives them virtually the energy not to do what they need to do and want to do. So Eva Braun. Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson's one of my favorite Moon Phase 18 because he very much describes the difficulties of the phase. The power to do what you want to do. Power. They've got power, these 18s. And Thomas Jefferson, he didn't like conflict. He didn't want to, and you know how good he was and how loved and respected he was. But he did not give up his comfort. His moon Venus wanted to be taken care of, and he refused to, even though he knew he should, challenge the whole slavery issue and start phasing it out. He didn't want that fight, and it would be a big one. But he could see the power of the South growing, and he knew, he even wrote that he should be challenging that, but he did not. And so here's what happens with Moon Phase 18. What Moon Phase 18 does not do, Moon Phase 26 must do. And this over here is Abraham Lincoln. So much for Thomas Jefferson. Albert Schweitzer, he very active and successful Moon Phase 18. Mao Zedong. Now, I don't know, I am not in a position or in a cultural understanding to understand Mao Zedong, but, okay, the UN. The UN. If only they could get their Moon and Venus out of their you-know-what, and do their, and they're specialists, and they need to specialize in their doing their job. But the U.S., I might reiterate, is a moon phase 18, and we, or at least our government, cannot give up the old ways. So I think it's up to the people to change the ways, because to people, power to the people. Remember that one? I used to chant that at the top of my lungs. Okay, Robin Williams was a moon phase 18. James Earl Ray, Sirhan. Both of those guys, James Earl Ray and Sirhan, moon phase 18. Somebody else tell me what to do. And they became with patsies for the real murderers of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. So here we have a moon phase 18. We'll let you look here. This is Princess Diana. And I will have a sip of water while you peruse Princess Diana. Now, she was born the 1st of July in 1961 at 7:45 p.m. in Sandringham, England. Now, her creative genius, now that's the ascendant, minus 77.5, up to 90 degrees, minus 90 degrees. And the body of fate is just opposite that. So we've got the creative genius because she was born so far north. The midheaven is canted way off to the left here. And so it puts the creative genius up there in the house of inspiration in the 9th house. And her body of fate's down there in the 3rd. So the ascendant of this beautiful woman was ruled by the Jupiter, which is ruled by Saturn. Now that Saturn's down there on the cusp of and rules the 2nd house of money, and I think it was a desire here for prestige and power, for 2nd house, to be part of an elite group, or the elite group. She wasn't elite enough already. The Jupiter is also ruled by Uranus in Leo, conjunct the North Node, conjunct Regulus, up there in the 8th house, the house of power. The midheaven is conjunct Arcturus, and it's ruled by Venus in Taurus in the 5th house. The Chiron in Pisces is on the cusp of the 3rd, meaning that she was not valued for herself, because it's in the 2nd, and that emotional wounding because it is in Pisces. The parental line is, as you'll see, is Libra, Aries, and so ruled by Venus up there on the midheaven, and Mars down there on the nadir. The Mars, the father, down there on the nadir, I think that fits, is conjunct Pluto in the 8th, in conjunct the body of fate, down there in the, at 1 Aries in the 3rd house. I think her father had an awful lot to do with her ambitions, promoting her ambitions. Her mother, and I think that's an awful lot of the wounding and the insecurity of this young woman, because her mother abandoned her at a very important age. About the time you really need your mother, her mother left home. And the Venus and the moon are square, and the moon's conjunct the south node. So that Venus moon square did not leave this young woman feeling loved at all. So remember that 18 is at the sesquiquadrate, which is the height of willful activity. It's relationships. And this really fits our Princess Diana. Her sun in the carrying Cancer is trine, compassionate Neptune in the 10th house. And that North Node, conjunct Uranus in the 8th, she could have really made a difference in the world, and did as long as she lived. But instead of her being ruled by that Uranus in the 8th house, which was, doing her work, making a difference, changing minds and hearts, and instead that Saturn of personal ambition, I think, is what led to her demise. And we lost this wonderful advocate for children because she was a moon phase 18 and could not abandon. Women have more trouble with this than men. Although it's not very straightforward. We still have a Sirhan and James Earl Ray, who were not able to do their own thing, were used by the world, as Crowley said. You don't use it, we'll use it. Yeah. So that was moon phase 18. It's a hard one. It's a hard one. Women have a hard time with it. And tomorrow, moon phase 19, the second half of this initiation phase. Every bit as fun. Actually, moon phase 19, that's where the solar mind, which is focused out, is joined by the lunar mind, which says, oh, okay, what can we do out here? And so moon phase 19 is a much happier camper than moon phase 18 was. So I will talk to you soon. Many blessings come your way.